glad to be here in Cologne. My name is Donovan. Thanks for the intro. And I've done a lot of things in my career. I've been worked creative lead in creative agencies and product manager, product developer. But one of the other things I do, as was mentioned, is I write freelance for TechCrunch. And I have since 2009, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things I've seen and some opinions I have. I want to preface and say, this is not really a presentation for tacticians out there. It's not really for the rubber meets the road. We're implementing augmented reality solutions right now today. It's also maybe a little too touchy-feely for journalists, but it's just a couple of my opinions that I've seen as I've been watching AR, mixed reality, develop over the last couple of years. And typically when I'm presenting about it, I'll call augmented reality and mixed reality, I will call it armor. That's not really to be annoying, although it may be. It's just really to shorten it from 13 syllables down to 2 syllables. Sort of like CHIPS, right? How CHIPS was short for California Highway Patrol, but not as cool as CHIPS. Nothing's that cool. But seriously, I've got a lot of slides to go through, and we're not really going to look at a whole bunch of case studies about this, AR technology or that. We're going to look at pictures of rocks, the foundation of our human tool set, and the beginning of our inevitable journey toward fancy digital tools that we'll probably wear every day or have implanted potentially, so that we can see things that no one else can see, do things that no one else can do, like they say in Big Trouble in Little China. And like Jody mentioned yesterday, essentially have superpowers. I'm aligned with that. I believe that that's how this tool can really help us. And a lot of people I've talked to, as I've covered startups, and I'm kind of excited about armor technologies. I'll mention it to people, and naysayers will be like, well, yeah, that's cool, but it's more like a solution looking for a problem. We don't really need augmented or mixed reality. And, okay, you could say that. You could also say, well, I guess we don't really need plows or CAT scans or sewing machines. We don't really need these things. But these are tools we make because philosophically, humans make tools. And unless there's a zombie apocalypse and the power grid goes out, augmented reality and mixed reality tools are going to serve us extremely well. But don't think about the zombie apocalypse right now. Instead, we'll take a look at a couple of evolutions of tools that we've seen happen, right? Because sometimes we have this really great idea, and we start refining it over time, and we make it better, more accurate, more powerful, more compact, and faster. Sometimes we really screw up, right? It kind of gets away from us. This tool we've created that started out as beneficial kind of slips away. And other times, I think we have a really great idea, and we end up refining it over time until we make something really beautiful, right? Like a handheld laser cutter. And then other times we have ideas for tools, and we have the very, very best intentions, but sometimes, again, it kind of gets away from us, and we miss part of the bigger picture. But what does that all mean? Honestly, it doesn't matter. The nihilist in me is like, well, it can't be stopped. Humans make tools, for better or worse. Philosophically, that's what we do. So one of the ways that we are different than a lot of other animals on Earth, also, beyond making tools, right? There are other animals on this planet that do that, but another way that we're different is our eyesight, right? We see the world a lot differently than other species on Earth, binocularly, color. And over the years, we've made a couple of pretty sweet tools for seeing the world, too, right? To see it better and further away, and super far away, and more clearly than ever. But maybe the biggest way that I think we are different from other species on Earth is our imagination and our ability to plan and think about the future. And so when you mix these things together, you get a whole bunch of stuff, right? Not just augmented reality and mixed reality tools, armor tools. You get all kinds of things. But armor is one of the things that comes out of this little equation. And these days, there are even maybe a new species out there that has the capability to view the world. computer vision, while it's not new, is becoming more and more robust. And when you look at, I sometimes read the World Economic Forum, and they were noting a bunch of benefits that come along with computers having vision, being able to have biologically inspired vision. And I'm also beginning to see, we're seeing a new species of tool makers, right? Even AI is beginning to create their own languages without, non-human languages. And as these species evolve, maybe they start taking on some of our not-so-great traits, right? Like the Google DeepMind game where the game was deciding, hey, if I want to win, I use the lasers to kill the other opponent instead of being nice when we run out of the apples in this game, right? So this leads to my next point about how, that's a whole, I digress, that's a whole nother conversation, but it just makes me think about how when we make tools, sometimes there is this misuse that becomes possible in that, or a perception of misuse. So up until now, I think, when people in the world, when two or more people were together looking at an object at the same time, we generally knew that we were all seeing the same thing, right? Unless you're on mushrooms or something, and then maybe you're not seeing the same thing. But with two or more people looking at an object, we had a similar view of what was going on there. And in an armor world where potentially people have a different tool to see objects, we're not always sure that we're all seeing the same thing. And that leads to some questions about perception of misuse. Does one person have more information than the other on a situation? And can some of those bad traits come out? I think this was the Tonight Show. It's pretty awesome. And as documented, many of you have probably already seen this movie, Sight, from a few years ago. It was a good example of how the gentleman was wearing the augmented reality contacts, and he's trying to date this girl, and he's pulling up all of this information about her in real time and kind of gaming the system. And so I used to think that some of these problems we have with using tools like this, when everyone has the same tools, when everyone has the access to wear an augmented reality headset or a very discrete one, or you can choose to opt out if you want, but when we all have that potential access, then the problems can be reconciled between misuse. But honestly, I don't think that's true. I think really the problem is not the tool, the problem is people, right? And so it can't be reconciled. But it's not all doom and gloom about how we can try to exist with augmented and mixed reality tools in the world, right? That's where strategy comes in. That's where the product developer in me kind of comes back to thinking about how augmented and mixed reality serve people best, right? And really the worst thing you can do when you're creating technologies is say, hey, we've got this cool technology. What do we do with it? I don't know, let's do something with it. Let's force it into people's lifestyle. That's not good strategy, right? And really the point is to put people at the center of the project or the thing you're trying to do and figure out how the technology enables that to be a good experience for a person or a consumer or whatnot. So strategy is super important. So what have we covered so far? Humans make tools. Sometimes we make good ones. Sometimes we make bad ones. Can't really be stopped. But if we think about it and we plan and use the appropriate strategies, we can make those tools serve us best and be good to us. And I think augmented, mixed reality, I'm not even using I'm supposed to be calling it armor, right? I just keep saying the whole word. I was trying to not do that. If we use the right strategy and planning, we can make this tool serve us best. So let's look at a couple of current tools. No, not really going to do that. You guys all know about HoloLens, Magic Leap, dARwinism. Some new stuff out there like Varjo. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but the super high density screens they're using in virtual reality, the Finnish startup, that's using those to almost allow a mixed reality experience from VR through camera pass-through. Pretty interesting. I was reading about it in TechCrunch a couple of weeks ago. Another thing that I always loved was Mataio, prior to being acquired by Apple, was experimenting with thermal touch, where locally heating up surfaces with your, tracking that through thermal cameras and wearable devices, you could turn anything in the world into an interface that you react with. And I thought that was very interesting. And I wonder if, now that Apple's acquired them, we'll see some of that research continuing. But yeah, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on what's going on today. I want to think about a couple of trends I follow and maybe an updated prediction. So when you think about a world where we're potentially very soon, sooner than we think, we'll be using mixed and armor tools, augmented and mixed reality tools that we wear a lot or that are very portable and much more humanly used, power is really going to be a problem there, right? And so as I'm thinking about the future, one of the trends I really follow a lot is power consumption, right? Because to have good experiences with armor tools, there's a lot of computing that goes along with that, and power is consumed. And so I look at things like consumer batteries, the battery technology, whether it's something like StoreDot that's a super rapidly powered battery, 5 minutes, or even new graphene or aluminum batteries that have massive ability to store power and recharge super fast. That's one area I kind of follow and look at. But also human-generated power through piezo implants, or even radio frequency harvesting. And one of my favorite startups from my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, in the USA, is a company called Nikola Labs. And they started off making a RF radio frequency harvesting case for your phone, right? They've moved on to much more complex wireless charging, but this is where they started. And so when I think about how we'll use augmented and mixed reality tools in the future, I think one thing that is going to happen is potentially the environments we are in will help charge those devices so that we have a much smaller and more powerful way to experience the content that we want from those devices. It's just something I keep an eye on so I can think about what's coming down the pike. Another trend I've kind of followed is miniaturization. Something like Movidius, when Movidius, prior to their acquisition by Intel, were building this Myriad 2 chip, this tiny, teeny little chip, right, with 12 cores, and that can function on a watt of power. Pretty awesome in terms of what kind of capabilities will come out of that once that's in more and more hardware devices to enable a powerful computational experience through armor tools. Also, as batteries just get smaller and smaller, you could easily see something like this, 2 of these 400 milliamp batteries in a pair of glasses or in some kind of helmet. It's just something to keep an eye on. And it's this kind of technology, this kind of miniaturization that lets something like this setup get much smaller and discrete. Corey Mander's a researcher. So there's a couple of trends to follow that lead to, I don't get out that easy. What's my prediction, right? I have to make a prediction. And one thing I do think will happen at some kind of level will be biointegration of tools to have really powerful experiences. And we see these little baby steps like glucose monitoring contacts today, or even Sony's, starting to patent, video recording contacts. I wonder how this is powered, by the way. Like, where's the power source for this? But maybe they have something in mind. Maybe it's biopowered, right? But these little baby steps that start up with more kinds of research that's happening today. Jody mentioned a couple of these yesterday in her presentation. There's a company also in Columbus, Ohio, the Battelle Institute, that's doing a lot of research in recording aspects of motor activity in the brain in order to begin bringing back physical activity in people that have been paralyzed. There are brave individuals volunteering their bodies to be part of this experiment so they can make life better for others. So the point is, when I'm thinking about those things all coming together and thinking about research where researchers have found that by stimulating certain exact neurons in the brain, memories can be reconjured, a map can be made, an action can take place. When putting all those together, I start to think about how we'll begin to experience content in the future. And this is our own little experiment. I want you to just think for a minute, like here's the white screen. Just like, close your eyes. I want you to imagine an elephant in your mind. Just like take a second. Think of an elephant. Now, you can probably see it in your mind for a second, right? But it's not persistent. It's not something you see like visual content that could be projected onto a screen or that you would see on a movie. But you have this, not only an image of this elephant, but this essence of this elephant. The whole experience that you remembered when maybe you saw that first elephant when you were a kid or whatever one popped into your mind. And the point I'm making is that Kareem also mentioned yesterday during his presentation toward the end of the day that we are in a content crisis, sort of, for augmented and mixed reality. Creating enough content that scales is difficult, and it poses a lot of challenges. And one of the things I begin to think about as we take a deeper look into our brain, how people can actually be the content creator themselves, and not only look at content that's been created by someone else, by an artist, by a digital shop, but people have the content that is their own, that they are projecting and seeing in their mind and able to transfer to others. So not only, I know it's getting a little, you're like, Jay, you're getting a little bit out there, but I'm serious. As we can begin to record brain processes with much deeper resolution, I wonder about a time in the future where maybe we don't even need augmented reality. Instead, we're able to have full experiences that we can then share with others. From like what, telepathy? Probably. And as even though Elon is saying that with Neuralink, he's like, yeah, this is like 2 to 10 years away. It's further than that. It's not 2 years away, right? MIT's had a lot of problems with some of the things that he and others have said about this possibility. Like, directly attaching to your brain is extremely dangerous. And there have been a lot of people that have tried to come up with, that have been doing integrations on themselves, and it's very dangerous, and there have been side effects and problems, right? It's not something that's going to happen right away. And augmented reality has a fine career ahead of it, right, in the next couple of years. But I wonder if the long term, we will have more integrated experiences by being able to transfer not only images of things that we see in 3D, but essences of things that go along with them. That's kind of my future thinking, at varying degrees of resolution. And we're already seeing experiments like this happen. Transferring brain-to-brain communication experiments have been going on beyond just what Elon is attempting in his company. It's happening, and we're not without precedent for this in the real world too, right? The elephant-nosed fish, which communicates with other elephant-nosed fish via small magnetic fields. Guys buy that? Well, it doesn't matter, right? Because it can't be stopped. We make tools, and we'll continue to push the envelope as far as we can. And if it sounds too crazy, right, if some of the things I've laid out here just sound too insane, I did put together a couple of other things that, just as a reminder for you to meditate on, that some other things that sounded pretty crazy at the time, but we've seen come to pass. So a moment of silence here to reflect on a couple of other insane quotes that happen. That's a pretty good one. That's also a pretty good one, right? There is no reason anyone would ever want a computer in their home. And then maybe the Queen Mary Mother of them all, the internet will be the CB radio of the 90s, right? The guy from ABC. So with that, I'll leave you with those things to think about and ponder. And I want to thank you all for letting me come up here and talk about this today. So thanks a lot.